The town was quiet, too quiet. Every night, just before the darkness swallowed the streets, something changed. The air became heavier, colder, as if the world itself was holding its breath. People moved faster, doors closed earlier, candles were lit, then quickly covered. No one spoke about it, but everyone felt it. The children were the first to notice. They would stop playing and look into the same direction, toward the empty road that led beyond the town. Nothing was there, and yet something was coming. An old woman once said that silence like this is never empty. It listens, it waits. And then, far away, a sound. Low, metallic, slow. One strike, not loud, but deep enough to crawl under your skin. No one needed to ask what it meant, because in this town, everyone already knew. When the sound comes, someone will die. The moment the sound echoed through the streets, everything stopped. A man froze in the middle of the road. A woman dropped the basket from her hands. Even the wind seemed to disappear. No one screamed. No one ran. Not yet. Because the first sound was never the worst part. It was the waiting that followed. Slowly, heads began to turn, not toward each other, but toward the same direction. The road, the darkness beyond it. A boy whispered something, but his mother covered his mouth before he could finish. Don't say it. No one dared to say it out loud, because speaking it made it real. The sound did not come from the church. There was no bell there. There never was. And yet, every night, it rang. Closer now, heavier, like something moving, step by step, toward the town. And this time, it was coming for someone. The second strike never came immediately. It never rushed. It made sure you had time to think, to remember, to wonder if this time it was you. Inside their homes, people sat in silence. Candles trembled in the dark. Shadows stretched along the walls, moving when nothing else did. No one looked at each other, because they were all asking the same question: who? Some believed it chose randomly. Others said it already knew that somewhere, someone had been marked, long before the sound ever began. An old man stood near the window. He didn't hide. He didn't pray. He only listened, because he had heard it before, many times. And he knew something the others didn't. The sound was not a warning. It was a countdown, and when it rang again, it would be too late. The sound faded, but the fear stayed. One by one, the streets emptied, doors slammed shut, locks turned quickly, twice, sometimes 3 times. Inside their homes, people moved in silence. No footsteps, no whispers. Even breathing felt too loud. Candles were covered with cloth, as if the light itself could attract something. Outside, the town disappeared into fog. No voices, no movement, only the memory of the sound, still echoing in their minds. A young woman stood by the door, her hand frozen on the lock. She wanted to check, just for a second, just to see if anything was really there. But she didn't move, because everyone knew the rule. When the sound comes, you do not look outside. You do not open the door. And most importantly, you do not answer if something knocks. Not everyone made it inside. A man stood alone in the empty street. He had heard the sound, but he didn't run. He didn't believe, not fully. Just a story, he had said before, a trick to scare children. Now, he wasn't so sure. The fog crept slowly around his feet, cold, heavy, alive. He turned, slowly. Every shadow looked different now. Every corner felt wrong. Then, he heard it again, closer. His breath stopped. This time, there was no doubt. The sound was moving, toward him, step by step. He looked toward the road. Nothing, only darkness. But something was there. He could feel it, watching, waiting. And for the first time, he understood why no one stayed outside. Inside the houses, everyone heard it. The second strike, heavier, closer. The candle flames trembled, without wind. A child began to cry, but was quickly silenced. Quiet. The mother held him tight, too tight, as if letting go would mean losing him forever. Across the town, people counted silently. 1, 2, 3. They all knew what came after the second sound. It meant the distance was closing, that whatever was out there had chosen its path, and it was almost here.
An old man whispered into the dark, "It's already too late." No one answered, because deep inside, they knew he was right. Back in the street, the man was no longer alone. At least, it didn't feel that way. The fog shifted, not like wind, not naturally. It moved, with purpose, like something walking through it, slowly, deliberately. He stepped back, then again. His boots scraped against stone, too loud, too sharp. "Who's there?" No answer, only silence. Then, a shape, barely visible, too tall, too still. It did not rush, it did not chase. It simply moved forward. And with every step it took, the air grew colder. He wanted to run, but his body wouldn't listen, because deep inside, he knew something terrifying. You cannot outrun what has already chosen you. Inside one house, an old man finally spoke. "They never told you the truth." His voice was quiet, but steady. The others leaned closer. No one interrupted. "People think the sound is a warning." He shook his head slowly. "It isn't." The room grew colder, even inside. "It doesn't choose randomly," a woman whispered. "Then how?" The old man looked at her, long, carefully. "As long as you hear it," he said, "it already knows your name." Silence. No one moved. No one breathed. Because that meant someone in this town had already been chosen, long before tonight began. The man in the street finally moved. He turned and ran, fast, desperate. His breath burned in his chest. His heart pounded too loud, too fast. Behind him, nothing. No footsteps, no sound. And that was worse, because it meant it didn't need to chase. He looked back, just once. That was the mistake. The fog opened, just enough, and he saw it. Not clearly, not fully, but enough. A shape that should not exist. Something wrong. Something that didn't belong to this world. He stumbled, fell, hands hitting cold stone. And then, silence. Complete, heavy. The kind of silence that comes right before the end. Inside the town, Everyone waited. No one spoke. No one moved. Even time felt frozen. Then, the third strike, louder, final. The sound echoed through every wall, every room, every breath. A woman closed her eyes. A man lowered his head. The old man said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. Somewhere outside, it had happened. No one needed to see it. No one needed proof. The sound was enough. It always was. Slowly, very slowly, people began to breathe again. But something had changed. It always did. Because the sound never came without a price. And the worst part was knowing that one night it would come again. And next time, it might be for you. The old man did not move. The room waited. No one dared to speak first. Then, he slowly lifted his hand and pointed. Not at the door, not at the window, at one of them. A young woman. Her breath stopped instantly. "No," she whispered. Her voice barely existed. "That's not possible." But the old man didn't lower his hand. "You heard it clearly," he said, "didn't you?" Silence. She didn't answer. She didn't need to, because everyone already understood. The sound does not come for the town. It comes for one. Her hands began to shake. "I didn't do anything." Tears filled her eyes. "I swear, I didn't." But the old man interrupted her. "It doesn't matter what you did." His voice was colder now. "It matters that it knows you." A man stepped back. Another moved away from her. Slowly, one by one, they created distance, as if being close to her was dangerous, as if the sound could change its mind. The woman looked around, at faces she had known her whole life, now filled with fear, not for her, but of her. "Please," she whispered. No one answered, because deep inside, they were all thinking the same thing. Better her than me. The woman backed away, her hands searching her own arms, her neck, her face, as if she expected to find something, a sign, a mark, anything. "There has to be something," she said. "There has to be a reason." The old man closed his eyes. "There is." She looked at him instantly. "Then tell me." He hesitated. For the first time, he hesitated. "Long ago," he said slowly, "people believed the sound marked them." "How?" "They said, it leaves something behind." Her breath became uneven. "Where?" The old man stepped closer, very slowly, as if approaching something fragile. "Not where you can see easily," he said, "but where it wants you to look." The room felt smaller, colder. The woman turned toward the mirror. Her reflection stared back at her, normal, unchanged. Then, she froze. Her hand slowly lifted to her neck. A faint line, barely visible, like a shadow under the skin. She touched it and instantly pulled her hand away, as if it burned. "No," the old man nodded. "It's already begun." Beyond the walls, the fog had not moved. It remained thick, heavy, unnatural. The street was empty, but not silent. Something was there. Not walking, not breathing, just waiting. Where the man had fallen, there was nothing. No body, no blood, no trace. As if he had never existed. The ground was untouched, perfect, still. Then, a faint echo. Not a full strike, not yet. More like a reminder. Inside the fog, something shifted. A shape, tall, distorted, watching the town, not entering, not leaving, because it didn't need to. It knew exactly where to go, and it would wait as long as it needed, because time meant nothing to something that never stopped listening. Inside the house, the woman sat on the floor, her eyes fixed on nothing, her hands still hovering near her neck. "It's not just a sound," the old man said. No one asked him to continue, but he did. "It's a call." The room went colder. "A call for what?" someone whispered. The old man looked toward the door. "As long as you stay inside," he said slowly, "it cannot take you." Hope. For a moment, hope appeared. But he paused, and that pause was worse than anything. It can call you out. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. The woman lifted her head. "What does that mean?" The old man met her eyes. "It doesn't break doors. It doesn't force its way in, because it doesn't need to." A long pause. Then, "It makes you come to it." The woman stood up, slowly, too slowly, as if something invisible was guiding her. "No," someone whispered, "don't move." But she didn't stop. Her breathing changed, shallow, distant, her eyes empty, as if she wasn't fully there anymore. "I can hear it," she said, softly, confused. "It's not loud." Her hand reached for the door. "It's calling me." The room erupted. People rushed forward. "Stop her!" Two men grabbed her arms, held tight. She struggled, not violently, but with a strange, inevitable force, like gravity, like something pulling from the inside. "You don't understand," she whispered. "It's not outside." They froze. Her voice dropped even lower. "It's already here." Silence, complete, terrifying. And then, a sound, right behind them, inside the house. No one moved. No one even breathed. The sound had come from inside the house, not from the street, not through the walls, not from the tower beyond the town. Inside, right behind them. Slowly, painfully slowly, the two men released the woman's arms. Their hands were shaking. Everyone turned toward the back of the room. There was nothing there, only darkness. A wooden wall, a hanging cloth, a cold fireplace filled with ash. And yet, the sound had been clear, not distant, not hidden by fog. Close, so close it felt like it had rung inside their bones. The old man's face changed. For the first time that night, he looked afraid. Not nervous, not worried, afraid. "That's impossible," one man whispered. The old man did not answer. His eyes were fixed on the fireplace. "No," he said at last. But it did not sound like denial. It sounded like recognition. The young woman stepped back from the door. Her eyes were wide now, no longer empty. "What is it?" she asked. The old man still stared into the dark ashes. Then, very slowly, he said, "It found the house." A woman near the table shook her head.
"No, you said it couldn't enter." The old man looked at her. "I said," he murmured, "that it did not need to." A heavy silence followed. Then he bent down beside the fireplace. His fingers trembled as he brushed away old ash, soot, and broken stone. Something metallic glinted beneath the black dust. One of the men brought a candle closer, and there it was, a small bell, blackened with age, half buried, hidden inside the house. No one spoke. The old man lifted it with both hands, as if afraid to touch it directly. It was cold, too cold. Not like metal left in winter, like something dead, something that had been waiting. The woman stared at it in horror. "That," she whispered, "was here the whole time?" The old man nodded once. His voice was barely audible. "Then we were wrong." Everyone in the room looked at him. Wrong about the sound, wrong about the tower, wrong about the road beyond the town, wrong about everything. Because if the bell had been here, inside one of their own houses, then the thing calling in the fog was never the true source. It was only an echo, a shadow, a messenger, and the real horror had lived among them all along. The old man held the bell as though it might wake, and perhaps it already had. No one dared go near him. No one dared touch the ashes again. The woman who owned the house pressed herself against the far wall, her face pale with shock. "I never saw it," she whispered. "I swear, I never knew it was there." The old man raised his eyes to her. "I believe you." That only made the room colder. If she had not hidden it, then who had? And why? One of the men finally found his voice. "Tell us the truth." The old man closed his eyes. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he sat down beside the dead fireplace, the bell resting in his lap like a confession. "There was once a man," he began, "before any of you were born." His voice was low, rough, filled with memory. He was not a priest, though people trusted him like one. He was not a lord, though even the wealthy bowed their heads when he passed. The room listened. He kept records, names, births, deaths, illness, sin, debts unpaid, promises broken. He knew everything about everyone. A woman crossed herself. The old man continued. "When plague came to the valley, the town begged for protection. They believed the sickness had a will, that it moved from door to door searching for the weak. So the man made them a promise. He looked down at the bell. He said he could bind death to a sound." No one interrupted. He forged a bell and spoke the names of the dying over it. He claimed that when it rang, death would take only the one already marked and spare the rest. The young woman swallowed hard. "So the town let him do it?" The old man nodded. "At first, it worked." A dangerous sentence. At first. When the bell rang, one would die. Never two, never three, only one. The room sank deeper into silence. "They stopped fearing plague," the old man said. "They stopped fearing winter, stopped fearing hunger. They believed the bell had made them safe." He turned the bell in his hands. "But safety has a price." A man stepped closer. "What price?" The old man looked up. The bell needed a keeper. Another pause. Someone had to feed it names. The room seemed to shrink. A child hidden behind his mother whimpered softly. The old man's next words barely rose above a whisper. "And when the keeper grew old," he said, "he chose another."
The woman by the wall shook her head. No, but she already understood, or thought she did. The old man's eyes moved slowly across every face in the room, not searching, remembering. Then they stopped, on the young woman. And when he spoke again, his voice was filled not with fear, but shame. I was not trying to save you from it, he said. I was trying to keep it from choosing too soon. The words struck the room harder than the bell ever had. The young woman stared at the old man as though she no longer recognized him. You knew? She whispered. The old man did not defend himself. Yes. You knew this would happen to me? He lowered his head. I knew it was close. A man lunged forward, fury breaking through fear. You let us sit here like animals while you lied to us. Two others held him back. The old man never resisted. There was no lie, he said quietly. Only a truth I prayed would sleep one more winter. The young woman's voice trembled. You said the sound came for the marked. The old man looked at her. Yes. And I am marked. Yes. She stepped closer, tears shining in her eyes. Then what did I do? For the first time, the old man's face broke. Not with fear, with grief. Nothing. The room went still. She blinked. What? The bell does not choose the dying, he said. It chooses the next keeper. No one moved. No one understood. Then slowly, horror spread from face to face. The old man continued, each word heavier than the last. That is why only one dies when the sound comes. Not because death is being guided, he looked at the bell, but because the old keeper must give way. The woman backed away. No, the mark is not a death mark, he said. It is a binding. No, it appears when the bell has begun to learn your name. No! Her scream shook the room. The child began crying openly now. Someone tried to hush him, but no one had control anymore. You're lying, she shouted. You just want to save yourself. The old man rose slowly to his feet. I wanted the opposite. He lifted the bell slightly. The black metal seemed to drink the candlelight. I buried it here because this was the oldest house in town, the first house built after the plague. I believed the stone and ash would muffle it, delay it. He looked at her with unbearable sorrow. But once it rings inside the house, he said, the choosing is complete. She shook her head violently, stepping backward toward the door. I won't take it. The old man's face became hollow. You don't take it, he whispered. It takes you. Then, from somewhere outside the walls, the fog began to hum. Not a voice, not wind, a low, endless vibration, as if the whole town were listening, waiting for the handover to begin. Panic spread through the room. Some prayed, some wept. Some began shouting all at once. Burn it! Throw it in the river! Break it! But the old man only stood still. It has been burned before, he said. It was thrown into a frozen lake once, buried under a chapel, sealed inside stone. He looked toward the door, as if seeing far beyond it. It always rings again. The young woman's back touched the wood behind her. No, she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. No, there has to be another way. The old man gave a small, broken smile. That is what I told the man before me. The room fell silent once more. One of the villagers frowned. The man before you? The old man nodded. He told me the tower would keep me safe, that the sound came from there, that if I never walked toward it, I might live a normal life. He looked down. He lied. The woman's breathing became shallow. Then why did everyone believe in the tower? Because I made sure they did. The confession hit them like ice. You? Someone said. Yes. The old man's voice did not tremble now. There was relief in it. Terrible relief. I needed the town to fear the wrong place. If they searched the houses, they would find the bell. If they found the bell, they would learn what I had become. The young woman stared at him in disbelief. So the tower was a decoy, he said, an empty ruin, a story to keep your eyes turned outward. A man stepped back from him as if from a disease. You let people die. The old man met his gaze. I let one die each generation, he said, the words flayed raw. Or I let the bell grow hungry and take more. That sentence broke something in the room. Not because they believed him fully, but because part of them did. The old woman near the table whispered a prayer through tears. The young woman's hand moved to her neck again. The faint line beneath her skin was darker now, almost like a thread, almost like ink, almost like something being written inside her. What happens if I refuse? She asked. The old man answered at once. It keeps ringing. What then? He swallowed. Until the town begins to answer. She frowned. What does that mean? The old man turned toward the small, shuttered window. Outside in the sleeping streets, something knocked. Once, then again. A door somewhere farther away creaked open. Then another. Then another. The villagers in the room looked at one another in horror. The old man whispered, "It means the bell stops calling one name and starts calling all of them." The humming outside grew louder, not from one point, from everywhere, as if the whole town were rising from sleep and walking in the dark, with empty eyes, toward a sound they could not refuse. The young woman stood frozen by the door. Beyond it, the town had begun to move. Soft footsteps in the fog, wood scraping stone, doors opening. No screams, no confusion, only obedience. The old man closed his eyes. It has begun. One of the men rushed to the window and pulled the shutter open a crack. What he saw stole the breath from his chest. People, dozens of them, walking slowly through the white fog, barefoot, half-dressed, silent. Children, mothers, old men bent with age, all moving in the same direction, toward this house. Their faces were blank, their arms hung limp at their sides, and under the fog's pale glow, each throat bore the same faint shadow, a line beneath the skin. The mark. The villagers stumbled back from the window in terror. The young woman looked at the old man, her face wet with tears but strangely calm now. "So that's the choice," she said. He nodded once. "Yes. If I take it, they live. For now. And if I don't?" The old man's voice was nearly gone. "Then there will be no one left to keep count." Outside, the footsteps grew closer. The front door shuddered once, not from force, but from the weight of so many bodies gathering beyond it. The young woman looked at the bell in his hands. All night they had feared death, the fog, the road, the tower. But the true horror had never been death at all. It was inheritance, a curse disguised as mercy, a system built from fear, then protected by ritual, then passed from one life into another until no one remembered the first lie. She stepped forward. The room cried out at once. "No! Don't touch it! We'll find another way!" But no one moved to stop her.
Because now they understood the deepest truth of all. Every generation says it will break the curse, and every generation waits for someone else to pay the price. The old man looked at her with unbearable sorrow. "I am sorry." She took the bell from his hands. It was lighter than she expected, and colder. The moment her fingers closed around it, every candle in the room went out. Darkness swallowed the house. Outside, the footsteps stopped. A silence deeper than night filled the world. Then, for the first time, the bell rang in her hand. Not loud, not violent, intimate, like a whisper spoken directly into the soul. And in that instant, she saw everything. The plague years, the first keeper, the names spoken into metal, the desperate bargain, the generations of lies, the tower story, the burials, the winter lakes, the hidden fires, the children spared, the chosen condemned, and behind it all, not a demon, not a ghost, not even death, but something worse. People. People so terrified of losing everyone that they had agreed to lose one. Again, and again, and again. When the candles flared back to life, the young woman was still standing, but her face had changed. Not older, not dead, just distant, as though part of her were now listening to something no one else could hear. Outside, the villagers turned silently away from the house. One by one, they returned to their homes. The mark on their throats faded. The humming vanished. The town was safe, for now. The old man fell to his knees, weeping, not with relief, but with defeat. He had not beaten the curse. He had only survived long enough to hand it forward. The young woman looked down at him, and when she spoke, her voice was calm. Too calm. "Go home," she said to the others. No one argued. No one dared. As the room emptied, she moved to the fireplace, knelt, and placed the bell back beneath the ashes. Carefully, reverently, like someone returning a sleeping thing to its bed. The old man lifted his head. "There may still be time," he whispered. "You could tell them the truth." The young woman looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smiled. It was not warm. It was not cruel. It was simply certain. "No," she said. Outside, somewhere in the fog, a child laughed in his sleep. A door closed. A candle dimmed. And in the dark ashes of the hearth, the bell waited. Because that was the final twist. The curse did not survive because it was impossible to end. It survived because the moment someone hears everything, the moment they feel the terror of holding every life in their hands, they understand why it was never broken, and why, when the next winter comes, they will protect it too.